Hello? Is that working any better for everybody? Do let me know. Okay. So, I don't know if that was remotely related to the what just went down. So hopefully not. Synced up? Alright. I don't know if that was related to my code or not, so that's the entertaining thing. Right, I'm going to... Can I summarize this up a little bit? I probably can. So we don't have to do multiple calls here. Woke up from a 4-hour nap. Ooh. So point, and it wants to be heatmap contains key point question mark, then heatmap.get point, otherwise 0. Plus this divided by the number of heat blooms, which I think is just equal to our sample size, isn't it? There. Means we're doing a little bit less legwork. Not applicable fragments, double. Ah, right, yes, of course. There's a double in here, technically speaking. Okay. So we do definitely need to fix this a bit. Because now we're iterating through every single block, which is creating problems, suffice to say. Because the bigger they get, then the more we had to iterate through every single time that we fix them up. And every time we go through them, we're doing a number of points that are still relatively small, but still actually like relative to the size of the thing, not very small. Finally finished the Witcher series today? Yeah, it's great. I was counting the number of war crimes that happened in that last episode. That last episode went hard on like crimes against humanity and such. There's only so much you can do when you're talking about a fantasy world. It was just entertaining to kind of like go through and tick them off. Like, let me see, we have biological warfare, we have white phosphorus, we have, like, chemical warfare. It's just so much. Indiscriminate kind of attacks. Oh. Tremendously fun. Okay, so yeah, we're doing all that. We're only going through it once now, which is an improvement over what we had before. It's still pretty chunky, I feel, though. So I wonder how else I should do this. Is there another way that we can go about this? Trying to think, what is the simplest way that we could do this? There really isn't one, unfortunately. Anyways, for the moment, let's just limit things to a two-dimensional plane. Just to make sure that it actually works at a reasonable rate for our testing here. So we're just going to limit all of our choices to purely 2D, just on one flat, sort of like slice. And hopefully that should work out a little bit for us. For just, like, this moment, at least. It will not work better in an actual environment, but for our testing cases, it should hopefully be a bit better. Don't chunk shame the code, it's more lovable chunky. This is tanking my machine. Like, Purah, have you considered how much trouble you have with the mod pack? Imagine if this was it. You just wouldn't be able to play at all. Like, these need to be lights. They need to be, like... They need to be light, they need to be versatile, all sorts of things. Like, can't necessarily do that if they're all dying. Now let's see if my stream crashes again. Still not sure what did that. Yeah, we seem to have some decent FPS here at least. Okay, so let's clean up and run these tests again. Also haven't had trouble with the mod pack since you inherited Nemo? Oh, fair. Good to know. Hey, Nick. Okay. Test 1. Our simple little starter house. Took a moment there, but nonetheless, we managed to get something. That is interesting that it's done that. Wonder what's going on here. We've got purple right next to dark blue. In a straight line, pretty much. How curious. I should probably change this to concrete to make it a bit clearer, shouldn't I? Drawing the heat map is now its own function as well, which makes things very easy to see. Give or take. Whoever's attempting to annoy you and it's annoying him because instead you're annoying him. Oh, you're ignoring him, sorry. Okay, so we evidently have one in the corner there. And then just spreads out that way. Because it's just such a small little structure. It only has room for one heat blue. Okay. And what does this one do? What does this button do? I did change up the code, so the bigger a spread list gets, the more blocks it's allowed to place in a single run. Which allows it to more or less retain its speed as it goes. It's 20 blocks or 1/10, whichever is larger. And we have a crash. Okay, what happened that time? Inside of draw heat map, there was a problem. Ah, because the heat map did not contain that. Okay, which is sort of fine by me, I guess. Like, that's code for later, pretty much. But it got to the point where it was about to draw, which is good. Yeah, because the total volume and the total heat map, actually, the total volume and the total heat map should be the same list. Oh well. Don't take a lot of things you say seriously, especially when you say don't X something, because you're generally doing it. That's fair, I understood. It was just sort of like a matter of, this is a thing that's a big issue that we need to resolve. You ever see something on Etsy and just need? Yes, frequently. Actually, Fuzz showed me something relatively recently in that same kind of vein. Okay, here we are, displaying the map. So that is the heat map it managed to generate. More or less before we crashed there. And it's very much based on distance. think we... looks like we had a couple of heat blooms over here and over here for the most part. Yeah, what Fuzz showed me was a... basically a witch hat. It was actually that, but they were also like selling the pattern for sewing it. So, ooh, there's an idea for me. Okay, let's clear that out and like run it again, just so we have it actually pristine. So in the field, if we were running this, what would happen is it would do its initial generation, where it rapidly spreads the creep around, and then it would generate this heat map, and from there it would determine where to put rooms, and then everything else more or less just continues on quite happily. So this is only really meant to happen once per individual rift, but nonetheless, this is a lot to be happening, and even if one of these is laggy, we're expecting these will be in situations where there's multiple, so we need to bear that in mind, in essence. Okay, so we're getting some very interesting results out of this. Very interesting indeed. How would I do the bark belt? The hardest part of the bark belt is the bark armor that comes with it. I wonder if I should have this actually work a bit more randomly, instead of just always being whichever next block is closest. Okay, so it has done that. It's interesting that it's doing it quite like that, on the basis that we're missing so many blocks over here that we know are in the high blocks list. Okay, and let's try this one over here. Because this is the one that I bisected for testing purposes. Rewatching Witch? Okay, have fun. One of the better series I've done, but Yep, there we go. Also missing some. Very curious. I wonder why that is. There's a non-zero possibility that we're actually just hitting the legit limits of how much data maps, like hash maps, can contain. Yeah, well, getting some interesting detail now, at least. I feel like it's possible that our heat map calculation is not entirely accurate just yet. Just yet. But there is the greater question of how we fix that. Actually, I might even know where it's going wrong. Or going wonky at the very least. Okay. So we do the same thing there, we get the distance, we keep that as a double, divide it by the sample size, and then we just turn it into an integer at that stage. That should mean we retain more of the information. Alternatively, your approaches. We can just go for a whole like list at the end and see if that actually changes things up, but that's running through the list again, and that might be still kind of heavy on the CPU. Humdy humdy hum. Of course, especially when you're making a three-dimensional heat map, we're gonna end up with some heavy loads. Like, there's almost no way to avoid that, especially once you actually start getting in occlusion. But yeah, thank you for that, Firefly. Very much appreciated. So let me see. Is there a cheaper way to do this? I mean, for right now, let's just reinstate our old code. Pixels being well fed? Yeah. The current donation goal for me to break even this month is, in fact, to keep Pixel well fed. Okay, I'm gonna hard limit the sample size to be just 1 for the moment, because this is still gonna be a lot of blocks. We can keep heat blooms as it is right now, I think. We're not actually using the heat blooms after that, but yeah. Let's just see how how that differs essentially. That reminds you, Cam? Have you gone like have you not had dinner yet? Is that the thing it's reminding you of? Oh. Going to bed? Okay, night Nick. Have good sleep. Dream of blossoming code. I love it. I was trying to only like add single class kind of things to various oddities before the 1.14 update, and now I'm on like my what 4th iteration of a hive mapper, oof, or a hive builder, I guess to be exact. Just yeah, that's story of my life right there. Every single time. Yeah, so the game's just slowing down a little bit because it's removing a ton of blocks around us as we're moving around. That's perfectly normal. That's not my fault in the slightest bit. Which is the best kind of fault, I think. Not mine. Okay, run that through again. See what the results are. So yeah, we can really see that working across now. And also this one does factor in whether or not it can actually pass through the volume to the next room over. It's only generating 1 heat plume, so consequently all the other rooms are black, because there's no heat there being detected at all. Which is fine. That's exactly what I expected to see. And I think the increase to 110, 420, whichever is greater, is making it speed up sufficiently. Yeah, maybe I should just go with randoms on that. Give a nice build more tendrily kind of view. Or I could sort them by closest and then have it be random? Not sure. Okay, yes, here's a little bit of the ray tracing side effects. So the brown here is where it started. It then determines that when it was at this yaw angle to go into there, that there was nothing there anymore. So it produced a plume in this direction, only so far as until it hit these, essentially. So it results in that, which is not quite the same kind of pattern that we saw before. It is entertaining to see, nonetheless. It's very interesting. And let's see what it does over here. Like, we can brute force this quite happily at this point. We just run this same algorithm over and over, and then condense them down. No. No.
For the year.
Oh, thank you, Cam. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, making very colourful rainbows around here now. There we are. So yep, similar thing over here. It did not detect that it could access those two blocks, so just painted them black, could skip them. And it did not eventually try to go around here, because same diff, essentially. What I could theoretically do is just, well, no, even giving it a large enough value will not actually cause it to go further. Also, I feel like 15 blocks is sufficient. Wait, let me see, how many blocks are there in this grid? Ultimately, we don't have to limit it to colors, because it's not going to be something that's visible, so we don't need to limit it to the color spectrum. Let's see, y equals 4 to y equals 18, that is 14. 15 total colors, I believe. Yeah, and you can certainly see the pattern in them at the very least. So there, that's currently what the existing system generates, but it does it quite slowly, as we saw there, even on a two-dimensional. If we actually allow that to be its actual size, which is one heat map for every 20 blocks, it gets to be quite a bit. What has Dusty done? Marsh, what exactly has Dusty done? Unfortunately, there's not terribly much written online that at least I could find for procedurally generating, or detecting doorways and such inside of doorways. Bought the thing? Oh, was it an antler hat? Did you buy Milo an antler hat? Is that what happened? Huh. Oh, you've been accosted by a shoe. Are you okay, Firefly? Are you perhaps running for public office? Wow, that was nearly perfectly in time with my camera there. Okay, so there it is, with a bit more balance, with a bit more weighting. So now it's detected these different rooms because there's actual, like, heat plumes that can reach them. And it's figuring out these ones as well, so consequently it can identify there's a lot of space in here that we can actually make use of. And we'll need to clean that up, because I still haven't actually told it that it can, I guess, what would the phrase be, co-opt pre-existing Hive. Shouldn't be, like, a major concern for it, but like, under most circumstances, it should only, like, Hive creep should only exist once a rift is already there to place it, so it shouldn't be a problem, but just make testing over and over a little bit more tedious, because we have to clean it out every time, because it doesn't recognize existing creep as creep it can contain. Yeah, slows down a little bit there. Maybe I can make that to a 10th. Yep, and there's the lag spike from it generating the heat map. I'm gonna flip-flop for an ear. Oh dear. Fireflies were innocent, they'd be eaten alive if they tried to run for public office. Yeah. Well, I guess that's also, strictly speaking, the kind of person you'd prefer to have in public service, so... Okay. I think we got enough of that for the moment. Let me see if I can dig up the, Etsy post that... I think it was an Etsy post. I'm not 100% certain. It was an post that was significant. Just as long as I've got this on the other screen. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, this is what Fuzz sent me. A lot of different designs and details and whatnot, all of which you can buy on Etsy store. So if you wanted to sew those yourself, you absolutely could. All you amazing people deserve my love. Aww. Thank you very much. No, you. So yeah, get heat from point is currently the function responsible for generating that pattern, and that is based on doing the whole spinning. Now, that does include occlusion, which is important for this, because if we just do it on raw distance, then we end... I should be taking my break before I finish this sentence, shouldn't I? Okay. Back to you in 10, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. So, just as I was getting into that, we have a function in here which generates a value that is how much heat at a given point, at like all of the different points. So, we give it an origin point and it spits out a heat map that we can then actually use to identify all of the different things that are going on. Using that nice
Have some more pride. 3.
Aww. I have a tremendous amount of pride, Pura. I am in fact tremendously prideful. Not about a lot of things, but prideful nonetheless. But thank you very much. Thank you very much. Also, are you just trying to keep yourself from dying? Because you're looking a little low there, I see. You're below 1,000. Anyways. So, this is the thing that we are currently using to spit out entire heat maps based on a single point of heat. If we can streamline this in some fashion, we might at the very least be able to get it to just be useful in condensing everything. Might being the operative word. Because it's doing a similar thing, it's checking the regions, limiting all that. What do you call jokes that are at a farm? Corny? Getting a bit long in the tooth, chewing the cud, you know, a variety of things. Okay. So there's our code that was, here's all of our heat sources, find the distance to all of them. And that didn't seem to work terribly well. So let's just get rid of that for the time being. I can rebuild that later if we need to. I've got the heat maps. Sample size is now being returned to its original value of 1/20th. Let's say math.max. 3 or that, whichever is larger. Actually, that might... I'm trying to think if I assign that, then that might actually be a problem. Let's say 2. Depending on extremely small hives is my concern. And so every now and then, it'll just rerun, it'll recalculate, provided that its section of like hive blocks has changed, whether there have been additions, subtractions, that kind of thing. It will recalculate, figure out, okay, there's not enough room now here for this particular hatchery to be there, so let's move that over to here, and then changing this will come up along and things will move around, that kind of thing. But we need to do this in a manner that it doesn't just lag out the entire server or the entire world whenever it does it. Because right now, that's not great. And, oh yes, just whilst we're offline there, I did change this to be randomly selecting. Should still go for, like, the 10 nearest, but it will at least do so, nonetheless, in a semi-random fashion. So it's not just a predictable spiral, essentially, outwards. Or it should. It might crash the first time I place it down again. That happens. That happens a lot. Okay. Back to work. Let's... just trying to think what we want to do here. What can I do to streamline this? Because right now we've still got that, which generates the list of heat maps, and then we condense them all down together, like so. But that still means going through the entire list of blocks a half dozen number of times, frequently a lot more. Like that big one, it was going through about 160 generations of heat map. So that is a lot of time to be going through a lot of different blocks. But I'm not sure exactly how we can make that lighter. The only way I can think of to make it lighter would be to have it actually do so progressively, like, tick by tick, rather than all in one. Which is the usual solution that we have for big, long things, like generating all the creep and such, but also it gives us that nice little ripple out effect. So... I wonder... Is there a better way to be doing this? Is there some simple, incredibly obvious way that is just skipping straight over my brain. Entirely plausible, honestly. Not dreadfully infeasible. Problem is, I just don't know what it is. If I knew what it was, I'd be using it by now. So it's got...
New challenger approaches.
Etsy, hello. How are you? Hope you enjoy my befuddlement. Okay, well let's come down to the generate heat from point. I'm just currently doing this. And let's just make it actually do the same old usual thing that we had. So we are going to need a list of block positions to check. And a list of block positions to check in the next run. Howdy from West Wales. Well, hello. We have some whales in this mod, in fact. They're not necessarily very smart ones, I'm afraid. Okay, and then while to check is not empty, and heat is greater than or equal to 0. So the first thing we want to do is put that value in the map. Actually, the first thing I want to do is actually loop through the whole to check list. And then we loop through all of the neighbors and see if any of those are A, not already in the map, and B, inside of our region. So there we go, and then we add those to our next check, and then we just go through and replace the entirety of to check with next check. Job's good, pretty much. So the map doesn't have it, but the region does. And then we know it's a point of interest for us, so next check gets it. So to check dot clear. And add all in the next check, which we also wanted to clear, so let's just stick that up there. And that is more or less what we do. Then we just need to minus the heat so that it degrades as it goes away, and that works for the most part. It makes that diamond shape as opposed to a circle, which it's not a huge problem. It's not necessarily very aesthetic, but it's not a huge problem. The main problem that happens is that with every single iteration of this, we add... more or less we're doing about 3 times the preceding generation's population. So it grows exponentially. Which then means that it gets very unwieldy very quickly. But it does mean it can go around corners, which is an advantage. Not necessarily very well, but it can go around corners. Because heat does actually radiate around corners. That's like an important notion of heat, in fact, for heating houses and whatnot. It's the main point of having a heat map, is you can see where the heat's moving. Spreading outwards, too. Okay. But yeah, I did a few runs of this before stream, and it ended up getting pretty massive. It's like, even with the smaller ones around here, it can end up being quite a lot. Quite a lot. The only thing you're interested in is eating this cake? Oh. Am I not entertaining? Art thou not entertained, Firefly? Did I tell everything to no longer be just at, like, 2 blocks up? I don't recall if I did that. I did not. I did not tell the total volume to do that. Okay, gotta reboot. This is a cornerstone of the entire project. Not of the entire project. This particular subsection, maybe. It's like there's... A lot of this is heavily inspired by xenomorph hives from Aliens. And there is another mod that implements xenomorphs and such, the alien monsters and whatnot, as well as predators and all sorts of other things. And I don't know the person making that mod. I don't know how many people are working on that mod. I don't know their levels of experience programming, that kind of thing. But I am so tremendously disappointed by that mod on a regular basis. Because I'm a huge nerd when it comes to the Aliens franchise. And I look at it, and it's so underdeveloped. Like, there are so many very simple, rough edge kind of things that it does to do what it does. And it's just, It's like, I want my seeming slight semblance of the same stuff to be so much better. So much better than that. Oh, I set it to concrete and it's gonna do the whole 3D. Okay, fine. It still works. Just about. Is there a thing I've forgotten here, I wonder? Or is there a reason that we're only seeing white as the top color there? Oh. Let's see what we get over here then, I guess. So it starts at 20 blocks and then it goes to 20 or 1/10 of the entire list size, whichever is more. Which means it's able to retain a bit of its speed as it's going up. This is what I mean. I can't even teleport out here because the command will have to process through the server. That's how slow this can get when you get to a larger structure. This isn't even all that big, honestly. Like, look at this. This is... I've gone mining in larger places than this. Like, most abandoned mine shafts have more, like, volume than here. But we can't leave, because it's currently going through all of those lists. In 3D. This is the sheer weight of what we are dealing with. I can probably just get rid of this block, honestly. This door is not stopping anything. By design, this door is not stopping anything. I'm not even sure I'll be able to destroy the entire door. Let's try. Oh, there we go. Yeah, the sheer weight, the heft and like volume that we're dealing with is creating a long pause that the server is still not back from. By the time we see that message, a singular tick will have completed here. So it needs to be lighter than this. And the problem is, I'm not 100% certain how to accomplish that. It hasn't frozen. Like, we can still move around here. It hasn't frozen. But the game is taking so very long to actually calculate all of these pieces, which it will eventually successfully. But long after we're just so fed up and tired of waiting, essentially. I could crash the entire game right now, quite happily. There's a red button for that in Eclipse. and we would come back and it still wouldn't be done. Not as bad as when you let loose the cloud of gas. Oh yeah, I remember that. Firefly, what Per is referring to is when we were developing the petrifying gas. And because it was a gas and not a liquid, it had to spread... Oh, look, there, we just saw at the bottom over there. I don't know how many of you spotted that. We saw particles from when I landed there. Because it's just managed to finish. But yeah, I made a petrifying gas kind of thing, which spread outwards and also went upwards. So when I got the code wrong initially on making it spread, it just kept spreading upwards. So we eventually ended up with just a sky level, like 20 blocks deep, that was just petrifying gas. Like, I had to finally balance that to make sure it actually, like, dissipated when it was in a large enough volume. Yeah, the ideal here that we would do is we would identify the points of highest heat. So in this case it probably be the whites, in this case it might be the pinks, and then everything within a step or two of that would be habitable, would be places we could put stuff. And then we would assign rooms, like so. Obviously, if it takes that long just to calculate the heat, then we have to figure out a means of making it move faster. Because clearly it's not going to work out very well here. We could try reducing the resolution so that we only have like 2x2 kind of blocks, for instance, or 3x3 kind of blocks. That might work better. Or at least that would like scale it down dramatically. And then we can just like resolve it a bit better. Then there was the kobold scale shower. Yes, that was when the programming for the kobolds, like, because the kobolds have a scale that they drop that you can then use to craft, I think it's arrow resistance potions. Not 100%. And you can get it by killing them, obviously, but they're a monster you might actually want to keep alive. So I also programmed it to occasionally just shed off of them, like how chickens will lay eggs, essentially. Although I don't think chickens lay eggs when you kill them. And I accidentally put that on the client side. So the value controlling when they would next drop an egg was always at 0, so they just went off and off and off and off and off and off and off, over and over and over and over. It was just a spurt of phantom scales, just all the way off. Lay feathers? When did chickens lay feathers? That's news to me. They'll shed according to, I think, Quark, but I don't think they do that naturally. Last I checked, anyways. Okay. I think reducing the resolution is the best option that we have. So to do that, we're going to need... Oh boy, we're going to need to take hive blocks, figure it out as by, like, a check of 3 or something, and then figure out 114? Did I do that in 114? News to me, if so. Let's have a look. Real dang quick. Feathers. Drops, natural generation, or gift. Adult chickens drop 0 to 2 feathers upon death. Yeah. Thank you for that, Firefly. Hey. Jeez, hello is Purr is looking quite unhealthy there. Foxes that are holding a feather also have an 8.5% to 100% chance to drop feather upon death. Feathers can be found in Plains Village house chests. Tamed cats have a 16.13% chance of giving the player feathers as a morning gift. Nope, they do not just... chickens do not just poop out feathers, as near as I can tell here. Nope. Lays an egg, that's about it. So, I'm guessing what you're referring to is Clark behavior. There, Dusty. Okay, let's define ourselves a value here that I'm probably going to need. as for short, I guess, equals 3. So every 3 blocks inside of our thing here, every 3 by 3 by 3 is going to be 1 in our actual resolved scale. That's what we're looking for. To be fair, they had so much in the last 4 updates, it's hard to keep up with vanilla and modded. You're not wrong. Either we're both wrong and are just too used to modded, or the wiki is wrong. Again, you're not wrong. Okay. So we go through there, we get the individual values. Also shirt? Shirt? What about shirt? Oh, mine. Yes. Hey, Dream. Apparently. When will Sims 4 return from the war? It's been loading for 20 minutes. Oh dear. Okay, so if not, resolved contains the resolved position. Okay. Now this will, if we dump this into our code, immediately break everything, because our system currently is built for immediately adjacents, 1 to 1 to 1, whereas this is built for more 3 by 3 by 3. So every time we move by 1 to the next one over, for instance, we actually need to increment by 3. It's not the hardest thing in the world to set up, though. So every time that we go through with the faces, for instance, we just need to change that away from where it previously was to facing by endpoints, resolution points. So here we have that offset there, we just change that to resolution. Right there. So for that, total volume is a main problem for us. But that otherwise should work basically as written. And we're going to need... We can probably actually just take this, give it a list of block positions. Blocks to resolve, in most cases, there we go. And then that should work out alright. So let's see, where else is that function used? Only there. Convenient. Okay. So now when we generate that, we need to get resolved hive that. Okay, so that reduces our hive blocks to a 3 by 3 by 3, and we need to do the same to total volume. Okay. Hopefully, reducing the resolution, at the very least, makes this more meaningful. There's calculating the total volume. Again, do I want to do that by itself, like just by 1 to 1 to 1, or do I want to do that by the resolution? That's probably best to keep 1 to 1 to 1. I have to keep saying that, or else I'll forget this is 3D. Okay, let's run it and find out what a mess I've made, I guess. It's about the only thing that we can try here. Tally-ho, what? I can already tell, I think, one point it's going to break. I think I can already see that. Because this technically makes heat travel 3 times more further. So a heat point on one side of the big building there is going to move all the way across. Because it's now 42 range? It's now like 42 heat as opposed to 14. By the time this loads on my laptop, lying stream will be over. Hey! Did I ever get the tooth marks out of the wheel? The tooth marks out of the wheel? I don't know what you're referring to, actually. And there's a crash. Okay, saw that one coming. Random next ints. Bound must be positive. Hive sample was not? Interesting. How is that possible? XYZ, 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 resolution. Result does not contain that. How did it manage to not have a positive there? That's interesting. Again, that shouldn't be possible. So there, it had a problem. I guess because of that. Okay, let's remove that for the time being. That's about the only thing I could think of that could be potentially removing every single one. Someone was chewing on the carousel wheel one Saturday. No, just send it to the shop. It's fine. Those of you who are not familiar, my Saturday show, Carousel, has a random wheel that we spin that is completely in programming and coded and is not in fact like remotely physical at all. It also likes to misbehave by giving us the same games over and over and over. Doesn't mean a void line cannot chew on it. You're not wrong. Okay, apparently it fixed itself-ish there. But it has absolutely no points. At all. Okay, phase 0. Display. Nothing. What are our coordinates? We're all in positives? Yes, we're in total positives, okay. So... what could it be doing wrong there? Hey Marsh, have a good sleep. It took a heat sample. It took 2 different heat samples. X equals 2, Y equals 1, Z. Hang on a mo. Let's just pop in here. I think I know what it's doing. I'm just not entirely certain how it's managed it. Oh, I'm an idiot. I think. Slightly bit. Little bit of an idiot. I know what it's doing. Just gonna set up a little thing so that I know how to get back here. Let's see, where's right here? 902, 5, 16, 7, 9. Yeah, I bet you this wasn't loaded, so I wasn't actually able to do that at all. Okay. So the coordinates it said it was working on there was 2, 1, and 0. Which would be underground, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. 2. Apparently, yeah, doesn't seem to have built anything there. But yeah, I think I have hecked up dramatically because I know what that's doing wrong. I should be taking the position and subtracting the modulus from it. Not just actually having the modulus. Because if it's at the correct point, then it'll just be 0, so it's the same point, then after that it's... yeah. That should be what I'm doing. And a get preserved mod is a function that I do there. That's one of my own ones because there's a flaw in how Java does it. So it ends up being just like off, essentially. So because of the way that was working, that might explain why we didn't get a heat map resolution, because it would have had so many things be exactly the same. Like it would have had a maximum of like 9 points. Okay, let's see what it does this time. But yeah, I think more or less this is about the only way I can do to actually make this function lighter, which is just to scale down the points, essentially. If the problem is too many points, then we reduce the number of points, in essence. And then in theory, I can actually just scale that. So things like this might be more or less untouched. Things like that, when it has, like, way more hive blocks, might get higher, like, well, higher resolution value, which means lower resolution. Okay, there we go. That's more what I was expecting. So yeah, we can actually see there's a big spot right here. It's a little harder to tell exactly what we're looking at, but we can see that that is in fact a model of the space down there. It does also mean that there are points connecting that shouldn't necessarily connect, but not bad. Yeah, we can definitely tell details here. Like, we can tell that's the end of those columns, those corridors. Blue? Right now purple's bigger than blue. There we go. Okay, let's try that with the biggin. Pretty colors? Yeah. There's one thing to like about this whole testing system where we have the colors, because the colors, again, are not going to be like a thing that actually occurs. If there's one thing to like about it, it's the fact that it looks pretty. It looks nice. Hey! Damn near, like, instantaneous by comparison. Not bad. Okay. Looking very good. Looking good. Dancing Rave Skull? Oh, I remember Dancing Rave Skull. So the heat map isn't going to be an actual thing, because you can imagine that would give away a secret hive place. Oh no, it is purely for testing. The heat values themselves will just be purely internal. There won't be a visual thing in-game for it. We can only see them in-game right now because we're testing. And it makes it so much easier to be able to test something if you can see it. And actually having the blocks be a present thing is a lot easier to test with than to set up a GUI or something for it. Okay. Grand. There is a problem that we're seeing here, which is you'll notice that's got mostly blue in the middle. Blue is very hot. Here we have more blue, and there's a fair bit more blue here. That's because it's not retaining the recognition of points that can't connect. So for that, we would actually need to change it up a bit more, probably back to a map, so we can go to tell it which points we can go to from a given point. That's a little harder, though, and might take us a bit of a while. I like this detail at the back here. That's from the redstone down there. Yeah, by reducing the resolution, we've made it much snappier. So essentially, every block here is 9 blocks in the actual thing, or up to 9 blocks. So consequently, we have cut it down to almost 1/10 of the scale originally. I'm not even sure if we'll have any, like, blocks for down here. Maybe 2 or 3. Yep, there we go. Oh, it's so small. It's so cute and adorable. Okay. So yeah, that's definitely a lot faster, a lot lighter, but we need to make it a bit heavier. So, in order to compensate for the deficiencies introduced by making it so. We need to try and make it so that the resolution doesn't lose the scrutiny that the high resolution has, which is the 1:1 that we start with. Okay. I am going back and forth here, aren't I? Yeah, let's see. The big one hit phase 0 at 55. The big one took 3 seconds to generate that heat map. 3 seconds. Whereas before it was taking actual minutes. That's pretty nice. Okay, so we need to convert the resolved map into a list of places and their connections. So we can say that we go from A to B, but not to C because there was a wall there and that kind of thing. Like, that's something that we need to figure out. Which means this needs to be returning a map. Or else we need to be scrutinizing our major points, which is by the resolution, by our lower points. So when we're detecting neighbors and such, we need to scrutinize, is there a disconnect there? I think changing the resolution is a good idea. I think that works quite nicely. Having it be 3 by 3 by 3 is still relatively close. And actually, it's more than 9. 9 blocks would be just horizontal. That's a 30th. Just about the scale. Oh. Let's see if we can get the resolution to scale. So the bigger they get, the lower the resolution, essentially. Territorium. This could take me an age to figure out, so actually let's just revert that. Okay, right. We need to follow the big parts and make sure they don't try to connect to parts that the small parts can't do. That's the next question. So around about here, we need to check if they can actually connect there. So let's see. Block price central equals point. Add 111. I'll just res over 2 essentially. Okay, so there's our central. And then in order to go into a different face, we have to go from our central point, offset it, and see if there's a block in the volume there. Except the total volume currently is not the it is the resolved version. Yeah, right there. So we need to instead give it the full version and resolve it as necessary in here, where it is mostly used once, right there. Oh boy. Okay, this is not going to be perfect, but it'll be a start. Okay, there's now 2 points it needs it there. Okay. Again, this will not be perfect, but it's a start. And the reason it won't be perfect is because all of our points exist at that point, so consequently it's not necessarily picking a position that we're in the middle of, that we have access to the middle of. We are potentially picking a position that we only have like the top left of, and it's starting from the bottom right, that kind of thing. But this should at least give it some inkling of how these these points connect, if at all. See how that does. But yeah, we've basically cut down the size of the maps by 30. That's pretty huge, which is why it's going much faster. So the cheapest example we have over here, because here we actually have a wall going directly down the middle. Whereas that's fairly open, which is what started this whole mess, essentially. We started from there, which was, can we fill an area? Then we started to there, which was, can we fill an area full of doors? And then there was this one, which was, can we fill an area with no walls? We're just trying to balance things out, essentially. Self-care is making your Sims hard. Oh yeah, the sauna does well for that. Okay, so yeah, with this wall, we should see that there is an actual, like, change in the morphology, essentially, of our heat. We want to be seeing that this heat does not go through this wall. Which I suspect it will anyways. We'll find out. And kaboom. Alright. It's trying. It's trying. That's for sure. This might work better if I actually scaled up the points so they met a bit better, but I would lose a bit. I would lose a little bit of traction. Okay, so the middle here is where that wall is. Pink should degrade to white, light gray, and then black and such. So that has definitely cut right there. But I don't know that it's necessarily done it the same direction, the opposite direction. So the next thing would be to also ask the neighbor one and if it can connect in the opposing direction. But it still did that pretty dang quick, so that's good. So the next thing to do is, if region contains neighbor, break this off a bit. I want to create the central offset of that neighbor, and then see if it can do the same thing in the opposite. Imagine Minecraft was like Creativerse and wood caught on fire from things like torches. I've had that thought. I've had that thought about that mod. I don't know if it would ever be wise. Like, part of Nature Claims way back in the day, which was the procedural decay mod, was that torches would be non-permanent light sources, so they would randomly burn out over time. And the older they got, the more likely they were to burn out. And then you only got like a stick back from them, basically. Ooh. Okay, equals neighbor add basically this exact same thing. And then if not total volume contains neighbor central dot offset face dot opposite. There. So if we don't have those two that directly connect, then we shouldn't think that these two things match. Again, not perfect. I keep telling myself that so that I remember to change it later, but this should be a bit smarter, at the very least. So now we check if we connect in that direction, and if the neighbor connects in the opposite direction, so that we can meet. This is still grossly reducing the complexity of the structure. So we're gonna get some false negatives and some false positives, but it's a start. There's still a number of people that would love to see the return of Nature Claims. You're not wrong. It has a surprising cult following, as it seems. I know there's been like 2 or 3 people over the years who've asked if they could somehow take up the mantle of booting it. And the answer is, sure, but you're not going to have much more luck than I did. Pretty much all of them peter out rather quickly. Understandable. Understandable. Maybe one of these days. Okay. Let's see how this impacts in here. I want to say this is working, actually. I'm not sure, though. Because that room is not remotely connected to any of these. So as I say, there is some degree of loss here. And then we've got these ones on the ground level that apparently don't think they can connect to anything. So no heat's passing to them at all. This is a start. This is a start. Let's bring it to the big one over here. Right proper quick before I cut for my last break of the evening. So yeah, the spread is still sorting by distance, but then it's randomly selecting which points it goes to next. And boom. Okay. Yeah, we're still seeing a fairly, like, moderated one there. I'm not 100% happy with that. You know what, I'll change how that goes. Anyways, be back in like 10 minutes, everybody. And welcome to our final hour of the evening, everybody. So, we have managed to dramatically increase the processing rate of our heat maps, but we've done so by dramatically reducing the heat map resolution, which means that the final heat map does not actually accurately know what parts connect to where. So, to fix that, we now need to try and expand the intelligence of it whilst it's trying to figure out which parts connect to where. We can theoretically do that by having a map that can detect if there's a blank spot of sufficient scale or whatever on a given side, or just by checking if they connect, essentially, at each point. Now, a map is one way, but since we keep using the maps over and over, and we keep generating them differently, that might end up being a mess, and we'd have to redo a lot of code that I don't really have time to do so right now. That would, however, be things to jot down for later in the evening, I guess, essentially. So, the one quick thing I really want to try here is to actually plug in the identifier code, because currently we just show all of the points. What we want to show is points related to the actual hottest value here. So, if we grab that, that's all of the hot and cold kind of points, so we get the actual ideal of a range. And if math.absolute heat minus hottest is lower than or equal to 2, there. So if it is within 2 steps of the hottest temperature in the map, then we actually then display it. Otherwise, we skip over it. We don't care at that point because it's not hot enough to potentially be a room. Out of curiosity, what kind of chair is my chair? It is a GT Omega racing chair. This is the pleather, although I'd probably go with the fabric covering. Fuzz has the fabric covering. It seems much comfier than this. But it is getting quite old, because I got this, I think, before we moved. So it's gotta be coming up on, 3-4 years ago by now. And it has extensive daily wear. My buttocks are practically drilling a hole through this thing. Oh yes, and just as a little extra, I'm going to dial up the resolution just a smidge to see how that looks. See how rapidly we have to go through there. Because the lower the resolution, the faster it processes, but the also lower the accuracy. So, fortunately, because of our system and the way it works, we don't need to have specifically fine-tuned heat level. So as long as the hotspots are giving out the same value of the heat from each point, then we should still end up with a usable heat map. Ideally. We might just end up with larger rooms. Need more food, but you do not want to leave your bedroom. Understandable. Okay, so that's what we just generated at a 3x3. Same over here. Looks a little bit like a missing texture, but it's fine. And yeah, these maps up here are purely for testing purposes, for debugging, so that we can actually see what information our rifts are generating. Later on, maybe admins will be able to interact with the rifts to see the known map of that particular hive, but for us right now, not necessary. That's a lot of work for something we don't need. And we'll also probably be ripping out later. Okay. So that's all of the points that are within 2 steps of the highest temperature. And we can see the hottest appears to be in here, which is actually the bedroom. There might have been a hotspot in there. That's resulted in that. Or it might have been somewhere else. Who knows? The ideal is that we're able to scale the difference to the point where we have only a handful of different rooms, or different hotspots, essentially. And that will mean that we can then identify the most useful areas, because they are, as this whole thing scales the number of hotspots to how big a room, how big of a hive it is, That should identify the areas of largest open space. I didn't tell it to do that, but it just did that. That's not... yeah. Hotspot in the bedroom, yes. Do you not get what's funny about that? Long story short, sex joke. Okay, well, it is taking markedly longer here. Essentially, the lower I drive the resolution, the faster it goes, because the fewer points it has to worry about. But also the less it really understands. I think odd numbers are probably best for it as well. Come on. It's taking 24 samples. It is currently at sample 11. So yeah, it is much slower now. Like it's taking seconds per sampling. Okay, it's now up to 20 of 24. This is for a 2x2x2 resolution. What we are hoping to see is a marked distinction between left and right, because there is a wall there. And it looks like it's broken up there, but it does have them on these either side. And we do have a general hot point in the middle here, because it's turning pink. But it is dominantly on the left-hand side. Yeah, we can definitely see a shape coming out of that. So that's good. Because if this was unabridged, then we would just see it pluming out like that, but we're actually seeing it weighted on either side by comparison. Nice. And me sat at the base of his tree in Wither form? What pack was that? Okay, so I think 2 resolution is fine for that one, give or take. I think we do want it to scale the resolution down the bigger it gets. New Helena? In Wither form? Not quite sure what you mean. Like, what do you mean by in Wither form? There, Purra. That's my question. Because we didn't have, like, a mod pack for... Actually, New Helena, we did have a mod pack. I'm thinking of Spring Romps. Tails mod or the equivalent. Right. More player models? Was that it? Guessing it was more player models. Including the Ender Crystal. Oh, right, yes, I remember now. Okay. Trying to think here, so... We can do an initial pass, check if... No, that wouldn't work exactly. My concern is we're going to lose a lot of corridors. Like a lot of mining tunnel kind of corridors. Like if you think of a branch mine, you think of like a 1x2 kind of... A 1x1x2 kind of like style of just repeating forwards. And those are going to be very small and very hard to catch at higher resolutions. To the point that they are probably only going to get caught at 1-to-1. Had to strain ourselves from just posting in the clubhouse a picture of me with a form sat in the middle of a creeper. Oh. I fought so hard on New Helena just to keep the diamonds out of the economy, and then people just found ways to break it in anyways. Para, I am, depending on circumstances, I am not resurrecting a chocobo. Those things have genetic NBT data, I'm not filling that out. But I am out to sea. Right. Okay. So that's all the music and spreads. Where are we looking for? Nearest rift. Here we are. Okay. So that is fine, as long as everything's built along a reliable grid. We ideally... I'm trying to think here. Because essentially this just reduces the entire world to 3x3x3 blocks. Which might be grossly off kilter with where the actual, rift has been placed. We theoretically want these points to actually be in the middle of that. So we should just, if we get the mod of resolution to the rift and add that, that should shift all of the points to being in the middle. Not sure. No? Problem dream? What's up? Oh boy. This is complicated. Not surprising, this is things that people put their degrees on. Has a potato laptop? Oh dear. Just trying to think. What's the most reliable way we could do that? We could iterate through that side, that face, essentially, of the given block, check for empty spots. As well as a link to the middle, maybe? Again, this is the problem. We have to scrutinize essentially one block to see if it's, like, to check, like, 27 blocks inside of that one block. And determine connection behaviors from 27 blocks. Which are either there, or not there, or there, but there's like a special quality to them. 1x1 works a little better than that. We do have access to the total volume, so there's that. But yeah, like just standards. A standard branch mine tunnel is not going to be caught by 3x3x3, which will make it functionally impossible for Hive to go through there. Despite the fact that they would definitely have enough room to walk down there and such, which is unfortunate. But having different areas have different resolutions is also hefty, to say the least. Although, that's an idea, actually. That would take forever and a day to code, I think. But we could theoretically reduce the entire hive area into a sequence of bounding boxes, essentially. A series of cubes. Oh boy, I think that's the first time I've ever had to say that in a Minecraft mod programming live stream. But if we reduce the whole area to a series of cubes... Let me see if I can demonstrate to you what's going through my head right now. Oh boy. So I'm gonna need a few different colors here, just to try and demonstrate what I'm thinking of here. There. Okay. So let's say that we're building up our hive, and we get to areas like, let's say we got like something like that. And then that connects through there to something like this, which also links to there, and then this has like a short thing that goes to there. So it just sort of does stuff like that. Okay, if we took all of these, these blocks that we can identify, and we kept adding them to, if we then routed through them, detected contiguous chunks. So, for example, we might recognize this as one contiguous chunk. Doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect cube, but that would probably be helpful for me later. Then we could break these all apart. Have I used green yet? Yes, I have. Red, yes. Pink, purple, yes, yes, yes. Yellow, not so. Nope, I have used yellow. Drat. Purple. Haven't used purple. Wait, yes I have. Dang! I need more colors. More paint. But okay, if we did this, then instead of having one overall resolution, we essentially have a different resolution relative to each individual section of the hive, which then allows us to retain a lot of the detail of a one-to-one, but also allows us to simplify really big spaces like that. I wonder if that's the solution. We just take the overall big, gribbly kind of like volume, and then we compound it essentially into a series of cubes. So that we retain the detail, but also still greatly reduce things. It would suck with diagonals, but how many people build on diagonals? And actually calculating this would be a massive pain in the neck, as previously mentioned. Oh. Is that the way to go about it, I wonder? Because it would then theoretically identify that as being basically just 4 cubes. Theoretically. The curve at the top might be a bit of a headache, but... Oh, brain, what are you going to make me do? What is my brain going to try and get me to program in the next half an hour? Ugh. I think there is merit to that. I mean, that's more or less functionally what we're actually already trying to do. We're trying to analyze the volume of the hive to identify where we should put things and where we can put things. We could theoretically build that as we're building the hive, though, is the thing. We'd almost have to. Could we, though? Lion gets quiet and extremely introspective at, like, 11:30 at night on stream. Now you have that scene from Aladdin? Which scene from Aladdin? What portion of Aladdin to which do you refer? Marry the shrew, become sultan. The idea has merit. Yes, merit, yes. Is that... I'm not even sure who's saying that in that case. Oh, Jafar and Iago. There you are. Took you a ways, but yes, there you are. So that's what defined as the heat there. So yeah, we would just basically reduce it to slices. Jigsaw pieces, puzzle pieces, Lego blocks, I guess. Or going from Lego to Duplo, let's say. If anyone remembers what, like, Duplo is. If anybody here happens to know. It's like... It's basically Lego, but the Duplo that I always remember is the size of this box, essentially. You guys can't see a thing I'm indicating, can you? There you go. Duplo is like Lego, but bigger, frequently. So you end up with, like, big honking pieces. It's meant for, like, toddlers and such, because it's less fine detail that they have to manipulate. So yeah, if we could manage that, essentially we'd be reducing the resolution of the building at that stage. So if we take the original volume, reduce that to a series of blocks, or break it down to cubes. Oh, this is gonna have me awake at night. This idea is gonna have me awake at night. Oh. But being able to do that would make it a lot easier to identify useful space, because we would just check for the largest boxes, essentially. Ooh. Trying to put anyone in a role of Robin Williams is a poor idea. Yes, but credit to Will Smith for trying. Gave it a good stab. God, that might work and everything. Oh, why has that only just now occurred to me, like, 20 minutes before the end of stream? that would take so much code to get working from where we are currently. Like, I would probably have to rebuild parts of this from the ground up, almost. Ooh. But yeah, once we've hit upon resolution, that almost actually seems like it could work. God, I'm not being very entertaining right now, am I? Because I'm just trying to piece a very complex notion through my head to figure out how do we approach it. If we can approach it. Apologies for that, folks. Ooh. But yeah, that could actually do it. Variable resolution, essentially, throughout the structure would allow us to retain the small detail, like long, small corridors, whilst also keeping the big detail of big open rooms. Watching me struggle is the most entertaining thing? Well, thanks. But I guess that's the whole point of, like, survival sandbox games. Right, if we get the total volume in here, we just stick this in here for the time being. We take out the draw heat map part. And indeed, the whole part of that. We just stick it in here for the moment. This gives us the list of the entire of the hive. We are essentially your ducks, you're not wrong. And what lovely, supportive ducks you are, for the most part, usually. Okay, so that's the list of all the blocks. Right. Step 1. Define the entire volume. There it is. Step 2. Identify large contiguous areas. To do that, we would need to pick an, ideally a block that is surrounded on at least 3 sides by points that we can't use. We just say get a corner. And then build out from that, adding in all the points as we go until we can't. Right, let's see if we can do something resembling that in 20 minutes. Night, Dusty. Okay, right. Let's just write down my steps here. Find bottom corner block. Add blocks to bottom corner to produce a larger cube. When fail, add cube to list, restart. Essentially, that's the routine that we'd be looking at. Okay. Doesn't need to be a cube. But at least for right now, cubes are probably going to be the easiest part. So, let's get our list of blocks. Call them Legos, might as well. Can I get this even remotely functional? Probably not. Not right now. Okay, so step 1, find the bottom corner block. Let's find the lowest one with the lowest, like just lowest values, essentially. if... let's get the length. Essentially, the length vector should be fine. Yes. Vector length is lower than the current length, then our corner equals that position. Okay. So start by removing that corner, and then route through, finding all of the blocks that we can. Ideally building a cube. Until we can't, essentially. Oh boy. Now how do I start with adding cubes? Now we've established we're on the lowest, so we don't want to go into the positive values because those will already be handled. Well, we don't get to go into negatives because we're already going into negatives essentially. So let's see. Define our size as 1. Currently, every time we do this, we'll increment. So for int x equals size minus 1, I guess? Yeah. X is lower than size. X plus plus. Going to need the chocobo to finish your castle? What function does a chocobo have in constructing a castle exactly? Flying. Oh, okay. So if legos.contains new Lego, we are probably going to want a list here. Okay, so that'll just keep iterating endlessly, so we need to know exactly when we stop. Like right now it only even just goes for one step. So we need a while, essentially. While n. So what exactly is our limiter here? How do we determine when we can no longer go to that point? Sorry, Dream. Have a nice night. I don't know how entertaining I'm being here for being very heavily busy. Or, confuzzled, I guess would be the phrase. Still be over there's a god? Oh, okay. Right. Not me. Yeah, I'm being quite dull here. Isn't confuzzle just a state of being for us? You're not wrong. Okay, so we just continue going until we run out of points, until we breach, essentially. Right. Since we're not drawing the heat map, let's then draw, well, let's first get rid of our Legos from there. So Legos.remove all contained Legos, so that we don't go through those again. We cannot use those Legos ever again. And then for block position Lego in our contained Legos, let's actually draw them so that we can actually see. So get world, set block state, Lego dot up 25. And what's our state going to be? Just base it on size for right now. Okay. So now when it actually tries to draw, when it tries to figure out the volume, we'll actually just be drawing this series of Legos. Well, we'll be drawing the first Lego. Can we draw one Lego? Let's find out. Can we draw one Duplo out of our Legos? That is the question. Can I manage? Have I managed that much? Oh, this is gonna be possibly hideous if it works. Okay, clear things out. Gotta reset our test environment. Which will still take a while to properly fully render and such, but let's see what happens. We expect to see one cube, because we're only generating one cube. And there it is. Is that seriously the lowest point? I feel like that can't be the lowest point. Like, the lowest point I would say would be over here, wouldn't it? Yeah, we should be able to find the whole thing from that. Okay, let's... Also, it's a size of 1, apparently. Which, yeah, actually, is that a size of 2? Might be a size of 2, I'm not 100% certain. But okay, now let's put that in a loop until it can no longer add more Legos. Or just runs out entirely. So while not Legos.isEmpty, because at the end of all of this, it still removes them. If we somehow can't find a corner, then we know the list is empty anyways. What is it going to do now? Yeah, we do go for everything. Do I add them? Yes, I do. Good. Okay. I will be astonished if this works. Utterly astonished. Essentially, it should, give or take, reduce the whole structure to a series of multi-scaled cubes. Not just individual cubes, or all cubes the same size, but varying scales. But only if I've done any part of this right. And it doesn't feel quite like I have, because these are very much the same size. I wonder, have I maybe messed up this a little bit? No, that's all good. So it just keeps running. It has modeled the whole thing, so that's a start. It's gone through the whole thing. We have a few different colors here. The biggest problem it has is it doesn't recognize when they're overlapping, I think. Like, it shouldn't be registering those as the same thing. It's just generated a lot of size 1s, essentially. Okay, well that's fine. If you're not trying adjacent sections of the same shape on a given axis, it might not be the most efficient in the end. I mean, this is already way ahead of that, essentially. We've already mapped this entire thing as one object, essentially. We are now trying to break it down into a fashion that is able to recognize small detail whilst skimming over large details, so that we can actually deal with it in a more processor-light way, because this is meant to happen quite a bit. Okay, right. I'm pretty sure it's to do with this. This part's gotta be right. I guess we just find out, essentially, if it's not able to add one of these, then we should be able to identify when we've hit an edge. In effect, then we don't have to worry about the top corner as much. So boolean should break equals. I have to do it like this because there's a lot of nests here, essentially. Can't just break out of one when you're already 5 deep. Are the long flights? Oh? With the chocobo, I presume? Okay, so the color denotes how big a given cube is. So let's see what we get. Rebuilt the chocobo pen so it's not directly against the wall. Oh, did they suffocate in the wall? Is that how that happened? Hmm. So when it finds one that's not contained in the list, then it calls it done on that. Otherwise it just keeps building in the positives. So essentially it's pinned on different ends. That's how we look at it. Let's just clean that up. Thanks, Meg, for a really small test. Yeah, we can see how that actually had different colors just sort of embedded in it. Okay. Let's see what it does now. Probably most the same. No, my luck. And I'm correct. Okay. Let me just dig through this. There's a few that are pink. How have we managed to get pinks in here? Looking at like the level of pink here, we would expect to see a lot more pinks. Is that positives? Yeah, those are the positive directions. So, how's it managed that? Exactly. Why do we have that, but we don't have anything going in the other directions? I think I'm doing the scaling wrong. Is about my only conclusion here. But that is probably about as much as I can do for today. So, hope you all have enjoyed. Let's see, get world, random. Next enter 15. Just gonna do that real quick. So we can get some real distinction and delineation. So if the outside of this thing starts to look like color soup, then we know it's a whole ton of difference. Right, hang on, I haven't done that. That's not what I just did. I was going to call every single individual block its own color, and that would definitely look like color soup. You ever have one of those, like, thoughts that pops into your head and you're like, yes, that would dramatically resolve this entire situation, or at least be fascinating while failing. So then you just have to try it. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is definitely going to be way out of the ballpark of what Minecraft even remotely tries to do. Like, we were already at that point. Now we're at the point of, like, AAA game studio. We're looking at the point of, like, a few $100,000 in budget. And I'm just programming it real quick in, like, 20 minutes on a live stream. Oh boy. So every single cube is now its own individual color. And yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, that's telling me that it's not quite getting the different shapes in the proper kind of like capacity there. Yeah, because we can tell because that looks like soup that this is all individual colors, and probably any of these lining up is more coincidence than anything else. So we need a bit more quality, and then from that we can figure out different cubes a bit better. Okay, right. Anyways, that is definitely all that I have for you guys tonight, so I hope you all enjoyed my rapid descent into madness, as ever. So, thank you very much for coming. My next stream is on Tuesday. We have some Monster Hunter World in Iceborne. I have a nice brand new look for the new DLC, so hopefully that'll be fun to watch. And then on Friday at 9 we have some Dead by Daylight. Probably doing some more Bloodpoint grinding. And on Saturday at 7 we have Dungeons and Dragon Heads, followed by the Carousel at 9. And we'll be back for whatever is driving me insane, or more so, on Tuesday at 9. Meanwhile, I do make videos on reader.com/comic. It's in the banner if you didn't catch me say that very quickly. And everything I do, from these to my videos to everything, is powered by you over at Patreon at patreon.com/lying. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever and next time.